So today I brought, first of all I want to know if this is working properly. I brought a few slides to show how characters are made for, it depends if they're made for video game or for commercials or movies, and what is behind these characters. At the moment I cannot see anything. Oh, there it is, okay. It's weird, this is weird. Yeah. So I'm gonna try to keep it, sure, I don't want to go really technical because probably you would get bored because, but I think it's interesting that you see what is behind these characters, how they're made. I think it's a good piece of information, and it's always good to have some knowledge what is behind this digital world that we use for commercials, and probably most of you come from the commercial background and you're creatives, right?
Right.
Okay. So let me open presentation. These things are normally done before people sit down. It's a bit weird to do it before they do it. Just bear with me, sorry. Okay. So, okay, my name is Rafa Zabala. This is my name. You can type in Google, come up with some information. You can visit my website down there, Rafa Zabala digital, don't know how you pronounce it, .com. I'm making one that is only Rafa Zabala without digital to keep it simple and more easy to remember. It's still in construction, but there's some things there that you can see. Also, I've recently opened a Facebook page where you can visit and see some of my work. I find Facebook to be a really interesting place to share your work. It's kind of real quick and you have like instant feedback. Also, you can visit my LinkedIn profile if you want to know more about me and my experience. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my background. Okay, before I became a digital artist, I used to be a traditional artist, and I used to work mainly in large sculptural projects. This, for example, is a monument for Captain Scott that was unveiled by Princess Anne, and some big pieces that you can see here. And I found that this traditional background, it was really beneficial for me along my career when I became a digital artist as well. It always gives you different points of view, when you're working and modeling your computer. This is some of my work, but before I go into it, I thought that I would like to share my demo reel with you, and this will take some of the time that I was going to be explaining all this technical stuff, and I think it's nicer that you see the person behind, this work, and that you relate my work with this speech as well. So let's go and play the demo reel, and then you see a variety of all the work that I've been doing traditionally and digital along my career. presentation. Well, there you see a combination, of all the different work that I've been doing. So I transitioned from the traditional tools to the digital tools. In the future, I'm planning to, I'm going back today. I'm packing up and I'm going back to Spain. So Little Village, I spoke about that yesterday. It's like I've been in a circle where I came out of this little village where I had my workshop traditionally, and so then I'm going back and I'm going to be working remotely for different clients and teaching. And so most of my work I do it with software called ZBrush and Maya. ZBrush is the program that I use mostly for organic subdivision and detail, which I then use to export maps and project into the main mesh that is used for animation. And it's an amazing piece of software. Bear in mind, I don't work for Pixology, I don't want to make publicity, but I love this software. And this software is what brought me to this industry. Because you can open a sphere, you can pull and push, and you can create anything that is on your head, just right there, real quick, When I discovered that piece of software, I was really amazed, I used to be working with clay and having to deal with a lot of materials and everything. That was amazing. I could just go Control-Z and redo things really easily, sitting comfortably in front of a computer without getting dirty or anything. So this is some of my work. This you've seen is ASOC, and this one here is my father-in-law, which I made for a documentary. They needed character, so I choose him. And this is a recycled character that I turned into vampire. I like to express feelings with my work. This is kind of like the tough in contrast with tender, right, and innocent. And so this is like a critique, like in this crazy world that we live nowadays, how people die in complete opposite ways, Some people die because they eat too much, and some people die because they don't eat at all. This is some more work, and some of it is very sketchy. I use ZBrush as well to concept work, and this, for example, I made for Sayed, experimenting with different poses and expressions. And this one is a study on contrasting scale with human form. And yeah, as I said, I use ZBrush. Now I'm going to go a little bit technical, I'll keep it short, I promise. And the way we work is that we kind of go ahead with ZBrush, we experiment, we pull and push, we create these characters, and when they're approved, we take it into Maya or any other main software and we retopologize it. I use Maya because I think it's a good software nowadays. It has really nice retopology tools. So basically what we do is you create polygons on top of the surface that you bring from ZBrush, and you recreate a topology that is proper for production and will be able to deform it properly later on. And then you have characters for video games and for commercials and movies. What's the difference? The difference, there is no difference in the software really. You can work with the same software for anything. I've been doing stuff for video games, for commercials and movies, so always use the same software. The difference is what is behind this character, right? How it's being built with the topology. And it depends in video games if it's going to be for mobile technology video game, or if it's going to be played in PlayStation or a PC. If this, for example, would be something similar to what you would have in Call of Duty, or something like this kind. And you can see that the topology is quite simple, but it's separated in different pieces: body, clothes, and gadgets. And you see things that you wouldn't see in topologies that you use for movies, like triangles in front of here. But they do that so they can economize in the amount of polygons that you have in a scene, right? Because these characters are going to be played real time. And also they use triangles to create shapes that you will see later on here in the character, like this shape here. They created with triangles as well. And then this character, for example, this detail is being sculpted in ZBrush and projected with maps later on. And there are two different kinds of maps. Basically, one is normal map, which reflects without deforming the surface, the detail, and then displacement maps actually push the geometry, and then you can see in the profile the details. So they normally use normal maps only for this kind of characters, because otherwise the scene would be too heavy. And here you can see with the color texture on the top, it looks really good already. The difference, for example, for mobile video game is that they would tend to join everything, all the topology in one piece. So here, for example, they've been working the shield separately and the body, and here you can see that it's all become one model, right? So it's gonna be actually a really light model that can be animated or can be played real time in a mobile device. Also, for example, things like this stuff that you would think, oh, there is a lot of topology going on in these lasers. Well, these are techniques like they put a plane and they apply this color map and a transparency, and then you have this effect. Then, if we go to cinematic characters, we see that already they are a little bit more complex, and we see, for example, in the face that is. There is a nice even topology here that flows with the physiognomy of the face. These round loops that follow around the eye, and always like in the corners of the eye, on the corners of the mouth, there are two loops that are holding these corners. So when he's smiling or making expressions, it's going to hold the shape of the mouth and the eyes. Also the hair, you can see, like in cartoon characters, they use topology. Okay, because they are kind of blocky shapes, so they have this kind of topology. While, for example, in The Last of Us, they would use planes, which is the same principle as what I showed you before. And they use transparency and apply the maps, and then you have something similar to what we have here, right? These lasers, but it would be hair. Here, for example, you see a difference when you are modeling. When you make a model that is not going to deform, you don't have to worry so much about topology, right? It doesn't have to be so even. Look at this topology and compare with this one, and you see that this one is more homogeneous. You know, like these polygons are kind of like the same size, and but you need it to be like this so it can deform properly. But this one is not going to deform, and when you apply the maps, the result is quite good. And then we pass on to the movie characters, and you see that the topology, for example, in Avatar or The Hobbit, is quite more complex, especially in the hero parts of the character, which is the front of the face, which sometimes is going to be up close to the screen. And then the topology is going to form these main creases and folds in the faces, like, for example, the forehead. And there you can compare what is the topology of a video game compared to a movie. Topology. This is very simple, and the results are seen through the maps projected onto the mesh, which is the texture maps, and probably normal maps as well. If you see characters from cartoon movies, kind of like what you see in DreamWorks or Disney, is practically the same principle. The topology is denser, where you have more details, and is forming these complex shapes, while on other parts is more simple because you don't have much detail going on. Here you can see the ZBrush model, like all the creases and folds and creases that you have around the legs, but then are projected with displacement maps and normal maps, and then you have this effect. And this is a very simple chart to explain what is to be a modeler. A pipeline is something that is very, very important when you work in production, and you're going to be part of a team, and you really have to know your place in the pipeline, right? You have to make people's work easy. So it's good that you know where you stand, and as a modeler, this would be like the ZBrush model, where you've been working without worrying about technicalities or topology. And so it's a topology that you cannot really use in production. Then you take it into Maya, make a proper topology. Then you pass to the riggers. The riggers build a skeleton, and the skin, the mesh, which means they weigh the vertex so they can be deformed properly. And then it goes on to texture, animation, and so on. So I finished with this. I keep it short, and I would like to make this more interactive. And if you have any questions, anything that you'd like to know, I encourage you to ask any questions. I'll try to respond.
Möglichkeit, die Fragen auf Deutsch zu stellen. Also ich kann auch nicht so gut Englisch, also es wird simultan oder es wird übersetzt. Also die Frage in Deutsch wird übersetzt.
That's auf Englisch.
Achso, okay, ja.
How many drafts, for example, with the org that you created, how many drafts do you get before you start working, and how much creativity do you put in the creation of the character?
Okay, a company like Weta Digital, they have many departments, right? Like when you work in a small company, you tend to be like orchestra man, you know, like you do modeling, texturing, rigging, sometimes concepting a lot, you know. But when you go to a company like Weta, you are a modeler, you specialize on that, you know. And then there is a design department, texture department, hair department, you know. So I was just making the models. The design came from the design department, which are really famous people that have been working in the industry from a long time, especially from a guy called Gino Acevedo. And this guy has been working Lord of the Rings and designing absolutely almost everything. And he also came from a traditional background. He was doing the prosthetics and makeup for the Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings were very traditional. It was basically actors wearing all these clothes and everything, and The Hobbit was very much digital, right? So Gino Acevedo basically designed the characters with the help of a team, and then he passed to the modelers, and you have a little bit of input as an artist while you take his design and make it into 3D, because sometimes 2D and 3D, you have to make it work, right? Because you know, there is some aspects that probably will have to be changed when you start turning around the model, but not very much so, really.
Yeah, bitte?
And so on him, how long did the back and forth take between the design and what you were working on?
That really depends, because you can work in main characters that are gonna be protagonists in the movie, or just, you know, like background characters that are gonna be fighting and stuff like this. Like I made many orcs, but Weta doesn't let you take any work home and show, like, turn around and stuff like this. So I can only capture what is out there for everybody to see. So you can get like from 2 weeks to 1 month. It really depends, you know, how complex the character is. There's always backwards and forwards anyway, you know. Like I show you the pipeline, and it's not black and white, you know. It's that's generally how it goes, but then it comes back to you, and you do it again because the rigger's not happy, then it goes back to the rigger. You know how it is anyway, very well.
Does it also happen in production for like a feature film like The Hobbit, that you already have that character in production and then it comes back for specific scenes to get fixed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does, because you have to make happy the director, and sometimes the directors are busy, and then the work, of course, keeps on advancing, and then he doesn't like something and has to go back, and you have to redo it. And that's something absolutely normal that everybody comes with. You try and minimize the risks, you know, by once you've made a few, more or less, you can tell, you know, that I'm not going to go into this, but I'm going to do that, you know. So, but for that kind of role, you have the supervisors, which always make sure, you know, that things run smoothly. Any more questions?
If you originally create, for example, for a mobile game, a sim, or a character with a low poly mesh, so to say, how time intensive is it to convert this model into a PC game, for example, to make it more high poly and more in detail?
Well, it's, you have to take your time to make a proper topology, and that would take probably a day, something like this, to make a topology, the most. It depends, you know, if it's, what you say, high poly, right? So, well, high poly really is when you take it to CBS and you subdivide it. The characters are not really high poly. Like, you can have 100,000 polygons in a character like in The Hobbit. For a cinematic, you can have 50,000 polygons, and for video games, probably 5,000 or less. And so it depends what you do. You do this base mesh, then you take it into CBS, and then you subdivide and start adding all the details. Then you export the maps and then apply on the base mesh.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
How long did it take you to get used to digital stuff when you used to work on handmade?
Well, actually, that's a good question, and I was talking about that yesterday in the Mercedes Museum, if you remember.
Right.
And it was a coincidence because I had a workshop in the middle of the mountains somewhere, you know, and one day a guy stopped by and he introduced himself, and he was a CG guy. And at that time, there were movies like Avatar and Avatar and Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I was really impressed, you know, like how they do this. I didn't have any idea. So this guy came in, he introduced himself, you know, I do CG. He was a concept designer, I think, from the CG industry. And then one day he told me, oh, why didn't you try ZBrush? You know, and I was like, I never touch a computer, you know, I'm a workshop guy. So he convinced me, and I started using ZBrush, and I loved it. I was hooked. From there, I went to a venue like this. I introduced myself to people. I took a lot of leaflets with my work. And eventually, they called me from the mill, and I started there from scratch, from nothing. So I was really lucky, actually. That's why I call him Angel, you know, because he came in my life and changed my path, you know. Any more questions? Come on.
The transition from organic real sculpting to computer digital work, how do you feel about that? The change, the way that you don't really react with the model. Is it hard?
It's different, you know, like you know, as a sculptor, you know, you realize that you have different tools to express yourself or to give form to characters or anything else, and this is another way. It's different because in the beginning it was playing tricks with my mind, you know, like because I was more used to touch and feel, and I could see the model live in a 3D environment inside the computer, which is a flat surface, you know, that I was looking at, and it was like I wanted to touch, you know. I can understand, you know, there was something wrong, you know, that I had to get used to it. And now actually it happens the opposite. You get used to that tool, and now I go to clay and I want to press Ctrl-Z, you know, or I want to work in symmetry, and I realize, oh no, I'm gonna have to do one eye, then I have to do the other eye. I imagine when you work in marble as well, which I used to work as well, if you break the nose, you know, you have to bring the whole face backwards, you know, to remake the face again. So there are different tools, and but now I was saying yesterday as well that with the new technology of 3D printing and scanning, you know, virtual reality, everything is gonna become like it's gonna become like more easy for us to use and understand, you know, probably for traditional artists that are amazing traditional artists that not many people know, and they don't give this step because they feel really far. I think with the new tools, like there's gonna be a lot of new amazing artists coming to the digital industry.
Which of those tools is closest to your heart?
Yeah, I guess the digital tools, you know, because it's like when you look back in the past and you feel like, you know, like I come from there, and sometimes I think, I wish I went to digital first, you know, I would have made a longer career, would have worked in more movies or whatever, but then you realize that everything has to happen the way it is for you to be who you are and to be where you are. And right now, this is a circle that is allowing me to go back and finance myself with CG work and go back to traditional. Because the thing is, it's difficult to make a living out of traditional art. And so, or you find somebody that is going to finance your work, or you have to finance it yourself, right? So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move there, and I'm gonna be working remotely for different clients to pay my bills, you know, and then, you know, I want to combine it with a little bit of traditional work. Yep. More questions?
Thank you, Rafa.
Thank you very much for inviting me. You know, it's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm honored to be here, and I hope to be back with more stuff, probably more traditional.
Thank you.